This is a story of a girl, a story she shared with us in her own words, a story of danger, of addiction, and survival. She didn't grow up with safety. She didn't grow up with guidance. And every time she tried to escape, life pulled her back into chaos. As a young teen, she was pushed into situations no child should ever face. Stealing cars, skipping school, being surrounded by substances and fear. Her life spiraled quickly. What started as curiosity became dependence. What felt like freedom became a cage. She spent nights alone, terrified, confused, running from home, running from pain, and sometimes running from herself. She shared her story, but sometimes life's gaps turn into the stories that define us. And being a teenager, well, it's hard for everyone, not just her. Most of us did things we later regretted, made choices we weren't ready for. But that's part of growing up. When she entered grade 8, John moved back home for a while. By then, she had suppressed memories of his earlier abuse, memories too painful to confront. But John didn't care about boundaries. He pulled her into his world of escapades. He was 22, she was 13. He would call the school to excuse her from classes so they could be together, embarking on secret adventures that no child should ever be part of. They stole one of the cars from their property, despite John not having a driver's license, and drove over to his girlfriend's house. There, they would smoke weed all day, returning home just in time before anyone could notice. One day, that adventure escalated further. They ate magic mushrooms. And she had a parade that evening with her air cadets, a responsibility she couldn't miss. It was reckless, terrifying, and unsafe, but somehow, through sheer adrenaline and fear, she made it through. Eventually, consequences caught up. Her stepdad noticed the second vehicle was losing gas and began recording the odometer readings. That's how he discovered the car theft. John was punished severely, beaten and kicked out, and she was left processing the chaos and fear, a child caught between survival and trauma. At times like this, many teens feel trapped and powerless. When every decision feels like a mistake and every risk seems overwhelming, it's hard to know where to turn. Here on Wise Parenthood, we share stories like these, real and raw, so parents and teens can understand what's happening behind the surface. If you've experienced something similar, or if you carry a story that could help others, share it with us. Your experience could guide someone who feels lost right now. Back to the topic. One of her first nights back at her dad's house with her stepmom, something she hadn't done since starting high school, was one she would never forget. It was late, around 11 p.m., when her stepmom sent Ace and Bob out to fetch cocaine. They were just 14 and nearly 15 years old, children caught in a world that was far beyond their age, a world that demanded things they shouldn't even understand yet. Bob was working too, and now, in addition to surviving the chaos, both Bob and she were expected to pay rent just to live under their dad and stepmom's roof. It wasn't cheap, $200 a month each, and that didn't even cover the additional demands. Any drugs or alcohol their stepmom wanted had to be obtained as well, as if her childhood responsibilities weren't already heavy enough. Food in the house was another battlefield. They weren't allowed to eat anything unless their stepmom had specifically prepared it for them. If they dared to open a can of soup from the pantry, they would be screamed at and forced to replace it. Buying themselves something to eat wasn't safe either. If they didn't make enough for dad and stepmom, they risked getting yelled at or kicked out entirely. Most nights, dinner was a single bag of chips from a convenience store, stolen moments of survival, since their parents, lacking teeth, didn't even consume them. Then came Halloween of that year, and with it, another reckless choice. She and Ace decided to try ecstasy for the first time. On October 30th, she skipped school, tagging along with Ace's girlfriend to another high school to pick up the pills. When she was offered one, she took it without hesitation. The consequences hit fast. Her dad called immediately, knowing she had skipped school, demanding she return immediately or face severe trouble. She rushed back to her school, But her blue jeans violated the dress code, and she was sent home again, this time to be picked up by her dad. Fear and adrenaline coursed through her. The pill was kicking in. Her heart raced, her hands shook, and her vision seemed brighter, sharper, almost surreal. Every sound was amplified, every movement exaggerated. She was terrified, but also caught in a strange mix of exhilaration and panic, realizing just how far she had stepped into a world she wasn't ready to handle. Her dad picked her up from school, furious, scolding her the entire ride home for clearly having no intention of being in class that day. When they got inside, he told her to sit in the living room while he figured out what to do with her, then went upstairs with her stepmom. So now she was alone, 13 years old, high on ecstasy, and desperately trying not to get caught. She sat on the couch, texting her friends and her brother, fingers trembling, trying to act normal while her heart hammered inside her chest. Then her dad called her upstairs. The moment she stood up, it hit the peak of the high. The room shook, her vision flickered like strobe lights, and her body refused to cooperate with her brain. Every step up the stairs felt like climbing through water. She made it halfway before her dad met her at the top of the staircase and simply said, "Go put my food in the fridge." Relief. She nodded, focused on walking without collapsing, and somehow made it back downstairs. She spent the next hour alone again, still texting her friends, trying to calm herself down and hide the chaos going on inside her mind. She watched the clock, waiting for the moment her dad would have to drive her back to school so she could catch the bus to her mom's house. It was her night to go there. When the time finally came, she played it cool, got in the car, and managed not to get caught. The bus ride was an hour and a half, and she held herself together the entire time. But as soon as she got to her mom's, the situation changed. Her mom took her phone, leaving her trapped with nothing to distract her, nothing to help ride out the high. So she went outside, pacing to burn off the wild, restless energy flooding through her. It was pure adrenaline, her body wired and her mind racing. Fresh air and space felt safer than being trapped in the house with her mom and stepdad. But by bedtime, nothing had improved. She still felt like a caged animal, panicked, jittery, vibrating with energy she couldn't control. Then her mom told her she wasn't allowed to go to school the next day, and that broke her. She panicked. The yelling started, loud, desperate, emotional, and when she tried to push past her mom to get out of the house, her mom grabbed her by the hair. Instinct kicked in. She started swinging wildly until her mom finally let go. The second she was free, she bolted. She ran down the driveway into the night, hiding in ditches whenever she saw headlights, terrified someone would spot her. It was a 5-kilometer walk into town, pitch black, cold, and nerve-wracking. But she kept going until she found a payphone. She dialed a friend. "I ran away. Come get me." That night, while she hid, there was a nationwide search for her. A runaway teenager lost in the dark, high on ecstasy, just trying to survive the consequences of decisions that no child should have ever had to make. The next morning came too quickly. She climbed onto the school bus, still feeling the remnants of the adrenaline from the night before, her body jittery, her mind exhausted. But nothing could have prepared her for what awaited at school. As soon as she stepped off the bus, she was met by the principal and 2 police officers. They were waiting, ready to take her into custody. Her friends, her peers, the ones who understood pieces of her world, were outside, banging on the windows, laughing, crying, shouting, caught somewhere between amusement and panic. For them, it was a spectacle. For her, it was humiliation, confusion, and fear all wrapped into one. The officers led her to a patrol car. She sat in the back seat, the cold vinyl pressing against her skin, feeling the weight of everything she had done and everything she hadn't. Her heart raced as they drove to the station, every turn of the wheel echoing like a drumbeat of consequences. Once at the station, they left her alone in a stark room for hours, just her thoughts and the echo of her panic. Eventually, her parents arrived, and though the situation was terrifying, she somehow never actually got in trouble. No arrest, no formal punishment, just the shadow of what could have been. But the memory of that night, the fear, the exhilaration, and the danger, it didn't stay in the past. It became the beginning of a long, dark spiral. For 1.5 years, she was hooked on ecstasy. It started small, once a week, then 2 or 3 times a week. Eventually, it became every single day. Some days, it wasn't even about getting high anymore, it was survival. 6 pills a day were needed just to feel normal, to maintain, to exist without collapsing under the weight of withdrawal, the crashes, the memories, and the trauma. Her stepmom, Ace, his girlfriend, and she were constantly consuming a small, reckless family of chaos, navigating the world through blurred colors and jittery energy. They stumbled into situations that would terrify most adults, let alone teenagers. Dangerous choices became routine, and the line between fun and harm blurred into non-existence. By the time she turned 15, the relentless cycle had taken its toll. She was tired, exhausted of the constant highs, the crashing lows, the shame, the fear, the living in a world fueled by chemicals rather than reality. She made a choice. She wanted out. The journey off wasn't easy. She slowly weaned herself off the drugs over the course of a month, confronting the withdrawals, the urges, and the panic that came with facing herself sober for the first time in years. Ace was sad, of course. He had his own patterns, his own dependence, but he had enough connections to continue, so he didn't make her path impossible. Her stepmom, however, was a different kind of obstacle. A constant voice pulling her back into the chaos, berating her for trying to be boring, calling her names, trying to make her doubt herself. Every attempt to quit was met with resistance, hostility, and manipulation. Her stepmom wanted her gone, wanted her broken, or at least compliant, and the tension was constant. It took 8 to 9 months after becoming sober for her to finally move out of that house. The story of leaving, the drama, the trauma, it was a chapter in itself. But one thing was clear, she had survived. She had faced the chaos, the fear, the addiction, the manipulation, and she had chosen herself. And that is the lesson she leaves with anyone listening. Even in the darkest chapters, even when the world seems stacked against you, even when the people who should protect you fail, the power to choose life, health, and self-respect still exists. It doesn't come easily, and it doesn't come all at once, but it comes. A teen story of danger, addiction, and survival. We're the lessons for parents and teens. This is a story shared with us directly by a teenage girl, in her own words. Her experiences are raw, real, and difficult, but they teach us important lessons. Today, we'll explore why these situations happened, whose responsibility it was, and how parents, step-parents, adopted children, and teens themselves can stay safe. We'll also give guidance on boundaries, addiction, speaking up, and recovery. Let's learn together. 1. Boundaries matter. Boundaries are rules or limits that protect your emotional, physical, and mental safety. This story shows how dangerous it can be when someone crosses them, like being forced into stealing cars, taking drugs, or hiding from parents. For teens, understand that saying no is okay. If someone pressures you to do something unsafe, you have every right to refuse. Trust your instincts. They are usually right when you feel uncomfortable. For parents, set clear, consistent boundaries in the household. Teens need structure, supervision, and guidance. Ignoring these boundaries can put them in risky situations. 2. Addiction isn't shameful, it's real. Experimenting with drugs or alcohol might seem harmless at first, but it can escalate quickly into dependence. This story illustrates how a single choice can grow into daily use. For teens, recognize that addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. If you notice yourself or friends becoming dependent, ask for help immediately. Counselors, doctors, or support groups. For parents, pay attention to changes in behavior, friendships, or habits. Early intervention can prevent long-term consequences. Shaming a child rarely works. Support and guidance do. 3. Speak up. Silence can make dangerous situations worse. In this story, being afraid to speak to anyone about abuse, pressure, or drug use increase the risk and stress. For teens, always tell someone you trust if you feel unsafe, pressured, or trapped. It could be a teacher, school counselor, sibling, or family friend. Your voice matters. For parents, encourage open communication. Create an environment where children feel safe sharing problems without fear of punishment. 4. Healing is possible. Recovery and escaping toxic environments aren't easy, but they are achievable. The storyteller quit drugs and eventually left a toxic home, showing that resilience and patience can lead to freedom. For teens, recovery may take time, but even small steps matter. Celebrate progress and don't expect instant results. For parents, support teens through recovery or life changes. Positive reinforcement, empathy, and guidance are key. Avoid judgment. Instead, help them develop tools to make safe decisions. 5. Parents and caregivers, pay attention. Teens are vulnerable and can be exposed to risky behaviors without supervision. In this story, lack of guidance and exposure to adult behaviors escalated the danger. For teens, seek safe environments and role models if home isn't supportive. Surround yourself with people who guide, not pressure you. For parents, know what your teen is doing, who they are spending time with, and provide consistent guidance. Awareness can prevent life-altering mistakes. 6. The bigger lesson. This story isn't just about mistakes or rebellion. It's about survival, self-discovery, and the courage to choose life over chaos. Mistakes happen, but it's how you respond and recover that matters. For teens, your choices today don't define your entire life. You can always choose better paths and grow stronger from experiences. For parents, support your children in learning from mistakes rather than punishing them excessively. Teach resilience and coping strategies. 7. Final reassurance. No one should have to navigate life alone. Growth, recovery, and peace are always possible if you take small, consistent steps. Choosing yourself, your safety, health, and future is never selfish, it's necessary. Takeaway: every person has the power to reclaim control over their life. Help is available, and mistakes do not define your worth. Here on Wise Parenthood, we cover real stories, share guidance, and help both parents and teens understand complex experiences. If you faced similar struggles, share your story with us. We'll discuss it, guide others, and provide practical advice. Together, we can create safer, healthier families.